My name is Alexander Ganendra Bagaskara. My name is 123240097, and in this video I will gonna talk about Linux. So what is Linux? Linux is a family of open source Unix-like operating system based on the Linux kernel, an operating system kernel first released in September 17, 1991 by Linus Torvalds. Linux is typically packaged as a Linux distribution, or we call it distro, which includes the kernel and supporting system software and libraries, most of which are provided by third parties to create a complete operating system designed as a clone of Unix and released under the copyleft GPL license. And now I will talk about the brief history of Linux. Linux began in 1991 as a personal project by Linus Torvalds, a Finnish student of the University of Helsinki. He was inspired by Minix, a small Unix-like operating system, and sought to create a free and open-source alternative for personal computers. In 1991, Linus Torvalds publicly announced the Linux kernel on August 25th. Version 0.01 was released on September 17th. Initially, it required a Minix system for compilation. In 1992, the Linux kernel was relicensed under the GNU GPL, or GNU General Public License, a crucial step that allowed for collaboration and free distribution. The first Linux distribution began to emerge. In 1993, over 100 developers joined the effort, adapting the kernel to the GNU environment. This collaboration led to a wider range of applications for Linux. Slackware, the oldest distribution still active, was released, followed by the Debian project later in the year. In 1994, Torvalds released version 1.0 of the Linux kernel, signifying its maturity. The x86 project contributed a graphical user interface, or we call it GUI. Commercial distributions like Red Hat and SUSE released their first versions. In mid-1990s, Linux was ported to various hardware platforms beyond the initial Intel x86 architecture, including DEC Alpha and Sun Spark. Version 2.0 of the Linux kernel introduced symmetric multiprocessing, allowing it to utilize multiple processors simultaneously, making it a viable option for businesses. Late 1990s until early 2000s, Linux gained popularity in server environments due to its stability and open source nature. Distributions like Ubuntu, Debian, and Fedora made Linux more accessible to a wider range of users. 2000s until present, Linux has expanded its reach to various devices, including embedded systems, smartphones with Android, and supercomputers. The open source nature fostered a large community and a vast ecosystem of software. Since the Linux kernel is open source, this allows anyone globally to view and modify its code according to their specific requirements. As a result, a diverse ecosystem of Linux distribution has emerged, ranging from desktop operating systems that offer an alternative to Windows and Mac OS, to purpose-built distribution for enterprise business, servers, and embedded systems, particularly IoT devices. In the next section, I will analyze Ubuntu, a popular Linux distro, and break it down to reveal its strengths, weaknesses, and innovations. So in this section, I will show you some screenshots from my usage of an Ubuntu live session. A live session is essentially a mode in Linux that allows you to use the distro without actually installing it to the hard drive first. This mode allows users to explore, try out, and make a decision if the distro really suits them. Particularly, I'm using Ubuntu 25.04 for this demonstration because it's the latest version of Ubuntu at the time of recording this video. From the start, you can really see the strength of Ubuntu in the design section. It has a very modern, simple, clean, and rather intuitive design. Secondly, Ubuntu has a lot of useful programs pre-installed, like Office program and a web browser, allowing some users to use the distro directly without needing to install the programs one by one. Third, Ubuntu, for the non-LTS versions, ships with the latest Linux kernel and also the latest kernel drivers, ensuring security and stability even for newer PCs, laptops, and workstations. However, there is no strength without weaknesses. The first weakness of Ubuntu actually comes from one of its strengths, a lot of pre-installed programs. Well, this means the distro is ready to be used. It also means that Ubuntu will take up more of your internal storage space compared to other Linux distros. Secondly, the user interface of Ubuntu is very different compared to Windows and Mac OS. Beginner Ubuntu users coming from Windows or Mac OS will need additional time before they can settle into the new environment. For innovations from Ubuntu, there is the Snap App Store, an alternative package distribution known for its user-friendly design. Even though the Snap App Store exists, Ubuntu users are still able to install software the old way using the apt command via the terminal. And secondly, there is AppArmor, a Linux kernel security module designed to restrict programs' capabilities with per-program profiles. Talk about the impacts of Linux on culture. The first thing that I want to talk is positive impacts. First, openness and collaboration. Its open source nature has championed collaborative software development on a global scale, where individuals can freely contribute, modify, and share code. This has democratized software creation and spurred innovation. Freedom and flexibility. Linux offers users unparalleled freedom to customize their operating system to their specific needs and preferences. This promotes a culture of experimentation and empowers users to take control of their computing experience, innovations, and adaptability. The open source model encourages rapid innovation and adaptation to new technologies and hardware. This has led to Linux being a dominant force in various sectors, from servers and supercomputers to embedded systems and mobile devices. Negative impacts of Linux on culture. While largely positive, some aspects associated with Linux and its community can have negative cultural impacts. 1. Elitism and inclusivity challenges. Some segments of the Linux community can exhibit elitism, particularly towards new users or those being using more user-friendly distributions. This can create a barrier to entry and discourage newcomers. Rabbit hole effect. The vastness and complexity of Linux can sometimes lead enthusiasts down a rabbit hole of endless customization and troubleshooting, potentially detracting from other aspects of life and well-being. 3. Potential for fragmentation. The multitude of Linux distribution and desktop environments, while offering choice, can sometimes lead to fragmentation and inconsistencies, which can be confusing for new users and present challenges for software developers aiming for broad compatibility. Of Linux on culture now explained, the video concludes here. I hope you have a very nice day.